Que estamos desde la posada y este es el artículo 8 de su programa Filikos. Hoy es el día 22 de septiembre, sábado 22 de septiembre, a escuchar lo que tenga que decirnos el candidato al Senado de los Estados Unidos por el estado de Texas.
Soy Raúl Reyes, alcalde del Cenizo.
¿Le ve a usted posibilidades a Beto?
Claro que sí, lo que estamos viendo en todo el estado de Texas es un movimiento, es mucha energía, mucha motivación, es lo que requerimos, dejando a un lado si eres demócrata, republicano, independiente, necesitamos que unirnos como comunidad hispana y asegurar que alguien nos represente no solamente a los hispanos, latinos, sino a toda persona aquí en el estado de Texas.
Como hombre de frontera, Beto comprende, yo creo, nuestros problemas. Está en contra del muro, por ejemplo. Sería para usted, en su opinión, un muro en la orilla del río, ¿qué le parecería a usted? ¿No le parece un poco exagerado, un poco...?
Eso es el problema con los políticos de hoy en día que quieren dictar pólizas y leyes que regulan la frontera. Son personas que nunca han venido a la frontera, que no conocen la realidad de la frontera y son personas que desafortunadamente piensan de una manera muy negativa hacia la comunidad, hacia la cultura y los lazos que nos unen como ciudades fronterizas. Es por eso cuando la ley SD4 fuimos la primera ciudad en demandar al estado de Texas en contra de esa ley y hemos estado al tanto de cada batalla en contra de la comunidad hispana latina y Beto representa la esperanza no solamente de las comunidades tejanas sino también de todo el estado de Texas.
Es muy bueno. ¿Cree usted que con el apoyo de Beto podamos lograr una mejor inmigración, una nueva ley de inmigración o como una ley de inmigración integral que ya nos solucione todos los problemas de migración?
Pues yo creo que si han visto el trabajo de Beto O'Rourke como congresista de El Paso, saben que Beto trabaja con republicanos y demócratas para asegurar que leyes pasen que van a beneficiar a toda la población y a todo Estados Unidos. Y sabemos muy bien y estamos bien confiados y conscientes que Beto va a representar a cada uno de los tejanos y va a hacer introducciones de leyes y la reforma migratoria va a ser algo muy importante en su legado.
En el Cenizo, ¿cree usted que tengamos, o más bien que Beto tenga una mayoría en cuanto a...
Yo me voy a asegurar de eso.
Pues me parece muy bien. Le agradezco muchísimo. Y nosotros nos olvidamos un poco del Cenizo, que estamos aquí tan cerca, pero es una comunidad tan importante y me da muchísimo gusto conocerlo, no tenía el gusto.
No, aquí estamos para cualquier cosa y es muy importante motivar a cada una de las personas que salgan a votar. Beto O'Rourke puede perder si no votamos. Y es importante salir a votar y no dejarnos llevar por las estadísticas, por las encuestas, en vez de quejarnos, de siempre andar amargados por todo lo que pasa en la nación, el estado. Tenemos que hacer algo y ese algo es salir a votar.
Magnífico mensaje, muchísimas gracias.
Gracias.
Michelle, are you ready to vote?
I'm very much ready to vote. I believe that a representative or a candidate that represents my values is what's important. I'm not about party, I'm about quality candidate.
Thank you very much.
Y quiero ver qué es lo que él tiene para ofrecer a los Dreamers. Entonces, me gustan sus ideas y quiero ver de qué se trata.
¿Qué futuro pueden tener, por ejemplo, los Dreamers? Que es muy importante. ¿Vio usted el debate?
No tuve la oportunidad de verlo, pero he escuchado muy buenos comentarios.
pues él ha ofrecido cambios en la cuestión migratoria. Vamos a ver qué tiene que decirnos ahorita, ¿verdad?
Así es, estoy ansiosa de escucharlo.
Muchísimas gracias, Alondra.
Well, the commissioner already said who's who, so you don't have to guess. But if you were guessing, the easy way to tell us apart is that I'm a lot better looking than we are. You know, Joaquin and I were born on the 16 de septiembre. And so we just turned 44. We just turned 44. But like a lot of y'all here in this room, our family's history in Texas goes back a long way. In 1922, the grandmother that we grew up with, Victoria Castro, we grew up with our mother and our grandmother after our parents split at the age of 8. She came across from Coahuila through Eagle Pass and ended up in San Antonio. She never made it out of elementary school, and because she didn't get a formal education, she worked her whole life as a maid, a cook, and a babysitter. And she raised our mother as a single parent. And then our mother raised us as a single parent after the age of 8. We feel very blessed in our lives because we were able to get a good education, to go to the public schools of San Antonio on the west side of the city, and then go to college, and then go to law school, and become the first in our family to be professionals, to be lawyers, and then go on to public service to serve the community that we grew up in. Every day when we used to leave the house, our grandmother used to make the sign of the cross, and she would say, "Que Dios los bendiga." And we're proud to be here today to support a man who is going to make sure that everybody has a great shot at opportunity in the American dream. He shares a positive vision for the future. He shares a belief in you and your family and the community of Laredo. So we're proud to be here today. Thank you for giving me a few seconds to say a few words. I'm the firstborn, so I always get He's 1 minute older. Beto and I were both elected in 2012 and started serving in Congress in January of 2013. And my brother told the story of our grandmother, and that's the story not just of our family, but of so many families. Parents and grandparents and great-grandparents who have worked so hard to give their kids and their grandkids a better chance in life than they had. And all of us are grateful for that. And what we need in office today are elected officials who are going to make sure that we create opportunity for everybody, no matter where you come from, so that each generation has a better chance in life than the last one. During these 5 years that we've served in office together, I've seen Beto stand up and fight for working families. I've seen him fight to make sure that in Texas you can afford health care coverage, because Texas has the highest percentage of people that have no health care coverage at all. Y'all know in the communities, you know too often that there are so many folks, especially our senior citizens, who are suffering with diabetes the way our grandmother did. And they're often suffering quietly. And oftentimes their kids, who are adults, have to go and take care of them, have to watch after them. Or like our grandmother, she lived with us and our mom for years and years because she could no longer afford to live on her own. And the only thing that my grandmother had to her name by the time that she could no longer barely walk and could no longer work, the only thing she had was a $335 a month Social Security check. That was it. So we need to send people to Washington who are going to make sure that they stand up and fight for Social Security for our senior citizens and Medicare. And also people that understand that just because you may be of modest means or that you may be poor doesn't mean that you're lazy and not hardworking. Doesn't mean that you're not trying. And that's why Beto has talked about expanding Medicaid in Texas so that 1 million Texans will be able to afford health care coverage. That's the kind of U.S. Senator he's going to be. So, I want to give, we hear that Laredo has had some of the best volunteers for Beto's campaign of any place in the state. And this room is a testament to that. I want to give one special shout out to my madrina and her husband who are here, Irma Mireles and Miguel, who moved to Laredo about 1.5 years ago, although I think Miguel was from here. Now, she knew my mom before we were even born. And they blocked walk, I think they said they blocked walked like 2 miles this morning on behalf of Beto's campaign. That's the kind of energy and passion that you see here. Is how many of y'all saw Beto win that debate last night? He won that debate because he's genuine. Because he's honest. Because he laid out a vision that was positive for everybody in the state of Texas and the United States. Because when his opponent was asked to say one nice thing about him, he couldn't even get that right. It's time for new leadership in the United States. And when he wins, all of us are going to win. Every single Texan. No matter who you are, what your skin color, what your background, everybody's going to win. And, he's had the chance to serve for 5 years now with my brother and with a man who has represented Laredo well in the United States Congress and who is with us here tonight, who's certainly no stranger to y'all, who has been working to improve this community and fight for it in Washington, D.C., that we're proud to call a friend. Please help me welcome Congressman Henry Cuellar.
Thank you. First of all, let's hear it for the Castro twins against Joaquin and Julian. Let me say this first before I introduce my good friend Beto. Let me first say something about Julian and Joaquin. They're amazing individuals. They got the same family background that a lot of us have. Just like, also like you, my mother and father went only to a few grades of education because in those days they would take out the young kids to go work in Las Piscas because the more hands you had, the more money you had. They didn't get an education, but I'll tell you what, they told all 8 of us, I'm the oldest of 8 kids, you all go get an education, you all work hard, and you'll be part of the American dream. That's what the Joaquin and Julian is, and that's where all of y'all have worked very hard. Now we left somebody out. How about this band, the Palacios? Weren't they good? They were just so good. Now, I don't have a twin. I do have 7 brothers and sisters, but I do have somebody that was born on the same day. Maybe I'll have her come up here. We just had a birthday just a few days ago. Again, happy birthday to Wawi also on that. So. Now, let me give you a little bit of history. Right here, back in 1992, we had a young governor that was right here that became President of the United States, Bill Clinton, right here in Laredo. He started off at one of the first places in Texas was in Laredo, Texas. My prediction is that young one over there, who's the good-looking one? Oh, yeah, okay. The real good-looking one, Julian, talk about 2020, he will be the next President of the United States. So this place has been a good place to lunch on. But before we get about 2020, let's talk about 2018. The next senator, the first Democrat from the state of Texas, will be Beto O'Rourke. Makes a difference. Let's talk about health care. Let's talk about what the other folks have done. They want to get rid of a Obamacare or the affordable health care, whatever you want to call it, that has put millions of individuals back in health to have health care. Look at what they were trying to do. They were trying to get rid of pre-existing illnesses. You know what that is? If you have cancer, or if you have diabetes, or something else, they wanted to kick them out. We need somebody that's not going to vote yes to kick people out, but put people back, protect them back against pre-existing. This is what we need Beto as senator. Education. When have you heard the other person talk about education? Now, he's talked about how dangerous the border is. In fact, I was in Houston just a couple days ago, and they were attacking the border and how dangerous it is, and it was wrong. Today, I spoke to the law enforcement cleaner. I said, hey, welcome to the safest city, because the most dangerous thing about the border is when I leave Laredo, Texas, to go to Washington, D.C., because the murder rate is 5 times bigger than here in Laredo. This is a safe city. We need somebody to protect the border against those type of attacks. And while he's attacking the border, we all want border security. Democrats, we want border security, but we want to do it balanced. The wall is a 14th century solution to a 21st century issue. Beto knows that. He knows that's wrong. So Beto doesn't want to build a wall. He wants to have the smart security, the technology, the personnel, working with our friends across the river, working with them to secure the border, because trade, tourism is so important. What we call our Mexicanos rapists and murderers, people just don't understand what it means to be on the border. Beto knows that because he's from El Paso. I've been with him over there in El Paso. We've crossed the border, walking together. We'll come over here. We went out to see what the border is. How do we protect commerce and tourism? Because after all, Beto knows that 1 out of 4 international tourists from the whole world that come into the United States are Mexicanos. And think about the money they spend at the hotels, restaurants, and so many places. Beto understands that. He knows that Mexico is not an enemy, but it's a friend. So people that see Russia as a friend and Mexico as an enemy, we know those people need to be kicked out, and we need somebody like Beto over here. About one final topic, education. Education is so important. We have the fastest growing community. The face of the state of Texas is changing. In fact, if you look at the last redistricting, we grew by almost 4 million individuals. 65% of those individuals the last 10 years were Hispanics. And if you look at the African Americans and other minorities, 90% of the growth the last 10 years in Texas were minorities, mainly Hispanics. So we got to make sure that everybody gets an education. And this is what Beto wants to do. He wants to make sure that teachers do their job, teach the children and not teach a test. Now, we believe in accountability, but not so extreme where you're just teaching the test and not the kids. Beto wants to do that. The other thing is, what happens if somebody wants to go to college. In Texas, we created the Texas Grant. In Washington, we have the Pell Grant. And what Beto and Joaquin and myself did something this year. We all voted to make sure that the Pell Grant is year-long, including the summertime, so students that want to go to college will go. That's what Beto has fought. Finally, let me say one more thing. Let me talk about, and I see Robert here and also Albert, all of the Democratic chairs. We got a lot of people here, but they have to go vote. They have to go vote. So again, I'm also saying that we got to go vote. We have to vote, but it also takes money. So I'm telling you, without going into the details, that Laredo will have the largest amount to get out the vote that Laredo had. I will make sure I'll put that money. Beto, we're going to make sure you win. Make sure you get out the vote. So again, ladies and gentlemen, the next U.S. Senator.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Tijerina, thank you for getting us organized and getting us started. The Palacios brothers, thanks for getting us into a good mood and ready to have a great time tonight. The Castro brothers. Our first stop today was in Del Rio. We had driven down from San Antonio and had a great conversation along the way. I believe Joaquin was driving. Julian was in the car. I was there as well. I'll tell you this is a true story. We're coming into where we're going to have the event in Del Rio. And I've got the window rolled down so I can hear what people are saying as we slow down to get into our parking space. And somebody asks their husband, who's in that van? And he says, I don't know, but he must be important because the Castro brothers are driving him around. So I feel like I finally arrived when I get to travel with Joaquin and Julian Castro, two of my all-time heroes who really represent the best of us in Texas. I'm so proud of what they do each and every single day. So proud of Julian, who in San Antonio, as the mayor, led on something that we should be following as the example in our country. They invested no small sum in making sure that every child could start at the same starting line. Now, the first day of kindergarten, which is where most kids in this country start their education, some are already 12 months behind in reading, some are 10 months behind in math. And you tell me when that child, through their academic career, ever gets to push pause and catch up to everyone else. They don't. And their chances of being able to graduate from high school, go on to higher education, earn more in their lifetimes are diminished as a result. Thanks to Julian and his investment and his leadership in bringing the community together, not Democrats, but the people of San Antonio, Republicans and Democrats and independents alike together. They serve now as the example for what I would like to do for all of us in this state and in the country, in the United States Senate, which is to make sure that we invest in education and the lifetime learning and earning potential of every child. What a great example Julian left for us, right? And Joaquin working his heart out every single day in the United States Congress in one of the most important positions of public trust. He's a member of the House Intelligence Committee. And you tell me when the work of the House Intelligence Committee has been more important, not just the threats arrayed against us from foreign enemies or potential adversaries all over the world that he's got to stay on top of, but a very serious investigation into just what happened to the world's greatest democracy in 2016 and what you and I are going to do together as Americans, because in a democracy we are the government, to make sure
that we're not attacked again in 2018, that we don't compromise our ability to choose our own representatives and our own president and the course and the direction that this country will take in 2020. So no pressure, Joaquin, but the responsibility of making sure that we get this right is on your shoulders. And there was no one else that I would rather have in that position than Joaquin. So let's hear it for the Castro brothers and their leadership right now for this country. So grateful. Perhaps the first call that I got when we won an unlikely victory in 2012, defeated an 8-term incumbent who had outspent us 5-1. We were not supposed to beat him. We were not supposed to be in Congress. First call that I get is from Henry Cuellar saying, listen, I know you haven't spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. Would love to show you the ropes and share with you how this place works and help you to be successful for your community. I know why you ran, and I know what you want to deliver for El Paso. I know that you're going to spend a lot of time away from your kids, Ulysses and Molly and Henry, and I want to make sure that it's worth your and their while. I want to make sure that you can deliver for your constituents. And so he helped me understand how to be as effective as I possibly could, to join forces with me on the House Homeland Security Committee to make sure that we could stand up for the border, not apologize for ourselves, not be defensive, not say it's not that bad, it's not that dangerous, but to say this is amazing. And the ability for people from all over the world to come together here in Laredo or in El Paso, Texas, or Eagle Pass, or Del Rio, or McAllen, or San Benito, or anywhere along the 2,000-mile U.S.-Mexico border, and contribute to the success and, yes, the safety and the security of our communities is something to behold. An example with which we can lead the country on the issues that are most important to us right now. The rhetoric of fear, intimidation, and anxiety, and paranoia that would result in walls. Imagine 2,000 miles long, 30 feet high, at a cost of $30 billion. And we were in Eagle Pass earlier today, and we were looking down upon the Rio Grande River, where there is no wall or fence right now, a very high embankment that would be very hard for you to climb up if you were able to survive the swim across the river in the first place. But absolutely beautiful to see. And what we realized is that if a wall were built there, it would not be built on the true international boundary, which is the center line of the Rio Grande River. It would be built a mile or two into the interior, on someone's ranch or pecan grove or farm or house, where they had built their livelihood and their memories and their life and a future for their children, taken from them at a time of record low-level northbound apprehensions on the U.S.-Mexico border. Does not mean that we should not be vigilant against the threats that we face, because we do face them. There are some who would want to bring illegal drugs into this country, and we must stop them. There are some who would traffic in human beings, and that also must be stopped, and those human beings must be protected. Yes. But let's also understand where we are right now, spending $19.5 billion a year on border security. Nearly 20,000 brave women and men who serve in the United States Border Patrol. Those members of Customs and Border Protection, all of the federal agencies who ensure that we maintain our security along our international boundary. And let's also remember who it is that we're apprehending today. Kids, sometimes if they're lucky with their parents, fleeing the deadliest countries in the hemisphere, in all of the Americas. Things so bad there, their government no longer able to guarantee their safety and the protection of their children's lives, that they will scoop up those little babies and they'll walk hundreds, thousands of miles if necessary, just as you would do if your child's life were endangered as well, to bring them to safety, to the one country that has accepted all of us when we most needed it, when no other place would take us in. If it was the O'Rourke's 5 generations ago fleeing famine in Ireland, it was to the United States of America that we came, to contribute to this country that we were called to and inspired by, to do better for ourselves and everyone who is here. So Henry, thank you for your leadership, your example, to the community of Laredo that has produced you. This is real leadership here. And I tell you, every time that we've been here, and this is our 8th or 9th visit to this community since we began this campaign, you have been so warm, so kind, so welcoming, so encouraging, and so strong for us. You have left me each time with more hope than when I came into the room, more energy we leave with than when we came into the door. And it has propelled us along the way in this campaign. So I want to thank you, each and every one of you. Those of you who are here for the first time tonight, those of you who have been here each and every single time that we've been here, like Rosalia, who was there the very first time that we came. And Rosalia has her cowbell. Can we get some cowbell? Love it. Thank you. You're making this happen. Let's use who we are, our experiences, our lives to inform the decisions that we make, the things that we want to achieve for this country. Let us not be against anyone, anything, or any other political party at this very divided, highly polarized moment in our history. Let's be the example of how we come together. If you're a Republican and you're here, I want you to know you're in the right place. If you're a Democrat and you're here, you're in the right place. Independents, you're in the right place. Non-voters alike, you're welcome to be here. And I'm glad that you are. This is about all of us doing the big things, the aspirational, the ambitious work for this country. The people of the future, also known as our kids and our grandkids, years from now are looking back at us at this moment to see in the face of these challenges just what we are able to achieve. And I do not want a single one of them to feel like they were let down. I want us to use our experiences in communities like Laredo, one of the very safest cities in the United States of America. Cities like El Paso, one of the very safest cities in the United States of America. Safe for a number of reasons. Police officers, sheriff's deputies, border patrol agents, those women and men who put on those uniforms, and every single day go out there sworn to serve and protect every single person in this community. Let's make sure that we acknowledge that but for them, we would not hold these records for safety and security in our communities. Let's also acknowledge that not only are Border Patrol agents vigilant against anyone who might come into this country to do us harm, or to bring things into this country that would do us harm, but it is hard to escape a week or a month where you do not read a story about an agent who has saved someone's life. In El Paso, the Rio Grande is constricted into a concrete channel, and that water passes through very quickly. It is incredibly dangerous. And some people, desperate as you can be, will risk their lives, sometimes the lives of their family members, trying to cross into the United States and almost lose their lives but for those members of the Border Patrol who try to save them. In our communities like El Paso, I saw Ron Martin is here. Ron Martin, who's the president of the El Paso Municipal Police Officers Association. Men and women like Ron Martin, who patrol the streets of El Paso, who are sworn to serve and protect every single one of us, help to keep us safe. In addition to their work and their sacrifice and their selflessness, we are also, I think it's important to note, a city of immigrants. In El Paso, a quarter of those that I represent were born in another country. The beautiful thing is that they chose us. Very often they left their hometown, their family, their comfort, their culture, their language, everything they knew to become strangers in a strange land. Yes, to do better for themselves and their kids' future, but also because they were called to and inspired by this country. They wanted to contribute to, not take from, the American dream. And I would argue that their very presence, their desire to be here and contribute, has made us more successful and safer and more secure. And I want to make sure that we all agree on this point. Si queremos asegurar nuestras comunidades, necesitamos tratar cada persona con dignidad y respeto, incluyendo los miembros de la policía, los miembros de la comunidad, incluyendo migrantes, sin documentos, incluyendo cada persona, cada humano en cada comunidad adentro de este estado. If we want real security, it means treating everyone, and that includes members of the police and law enforcement, with the respect and dignity that they are owed as human beings. It means treating immigrants, undocumented and documented alike, like the human beings that they are, and making sure that we respect that. When everyone feels like they have a share in the success that we want to see for this country, when everyone is invested, everyone's there to report crimes, to serve as witnesses, to testify in trials, to make sure that they are doing their fair part. When anyone feels excluded, then it's a little bit harder for them to do that. We become a little bit less safe as a consequence. So here's our challenge. And let me put this in a historical perspective. When I'm thinking about the people of the future who will be looking back on us and holding us accountable for what we do and what we fail to do. Some of you may know this story already. For those who do not, let me share it with you. In May of 1939, a ship called the St. Louis set sail from the port of Hamburg, Germany. 913 passengers aboard, each one of them a Jewish refugee. Children, women, and men fleeing Nazi Germany, the Third Reich, setting sail and course for Cuba, a country which would change its asylum laws as the St. Louis was crossing the Atlantic, would not allow those passengers, those refugees, to be able to dock at the port of Havana and get off that ship. So they did what any one of us would do in that same situation. They then set course for the United States of America. And what did we do? Though it was the decision of just one person, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, it's a decision that stays with us to this day. We did not allow that ship to dock either. We sent her back across the Atlantic to Europe, where more than 240 of her passengers would be murdered during the Holocaust. Children, women, and men. Now, that was 1939. Today is 2018, but we know full well that there are families who are leaving the deadliest countries in the hemisphere, if not the planet right now, who, if they go back to those countries, may very well lose their lives. And initially, so far, our response has been, you come here with that precious child of yours, and we will take her from your arms. We will turn you over to the Department of Justice. We will prosecute you like a common criminal before we turn you over to another agency to deport you back to the very country from which you fled. And that child for whom you risked your life, she might be in a foster care home in Michigan or Ohio or Indiana. She may be in a tent camp in Tornillo in the middle of the Chihuahuan Desert just outside of El Paso. And she may have no idea when or even if she's going to see you again. That is what we are doing right now. And that will define us. That will be the stain that we carry for generations to come if we do not change it at this moment. It may have been the decision of one man, in this case, Donald J. Trump, to visit that inhumanity, that cruelty, and that torture upon those children and those families. But it is now on all of us to make it right, to ensure that never again is another child taken from their parents when all they seek is safety. And immediately we reunite the hundreds of kids who are waiting to see their parents tonight. And from those steps, we make sure that from our experiences, from these communities of immigrants, that we lead on the issue that we know better than anyone else in this country. We know that dreamers who know no other language than English in most cases, who no longer have family in the country in which they were born, who are every bit as American in any way that counts as anyone else in this room, certainly as American as my 3 children, who are not just being taught in our schools today, who are teaching in our schools, 20,000 dreamers teaching in public schools across this country right now, dreamers who are serving in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Iraq, in Somalia, in Libya, in Yemen, in Niger, all over the world, putting their lives on the line at a time that fewer than 1% of Americans served this country in uniform overseas since 9/11. Dreamers are doing that right now. When 58 inches of rain fell from the sky, the landfall record in recorded history for the continental United States on the city of Houston, Texas. Alonzo Guillen, a dreamer who happened to live in Lufkin, Texas, did what anybody else would do. He hitched a boat to his truck, drove down to Houston, put in where he could, and began saving the lives of complete strangers, his fellow Americans, doing his part. And in that effort, he lost his life, paid the ultimate price, sacrificed himself for the betterment of others and for this country. How could we allow those who have sacrificed so much, the generations who have preceded us, the dreamers from which all of us spring originally, how could we let them down by failing to free dreamers today from the fear of deportation, by making them U.S. citizens right now so they can contribute to their full potential, their maximum capacity, give all that they've got to the success of this country? Why not have Laredo and El Paso and the state of Texas lead on that issue? Not fearing immigrants and the rest of the world, but as we were saying on the drive over, if immigration is a problem, it's a really good problem for us to have. The fact that people are still called to this country is something that we should cherish, and we should find a way to rewrite our immigration laws to ensure that there is order, there's rule of law, but that those laws look like us, reflect who we are, our experiences, our values, and our interests. I'm confident that Republicans and Democrats and independents from the state of Texas can come together on this issue. One of the last times we were here in Laredo, we learned about another issue. I don't know if Joey is here tonight, but a young man came up to me after I'd had a chance to take questions and speak a little bit, and he said, when you were talking about healthcare, it really resonated with me. Because I've never had insurance. I've been to a doctor once. I'm 29 years old. And the one time I went to that community healthcare clinic, the doctor told me, Joey, we know that you had diabetes. I also want to tell you you've got glaucoma. And you're going to be dead before you're 40 years old. Here in the wealthiest, the most powerful country the world has ever known, whose taxpayers have invested in the innovations and the research for the medicines and the cures that are sold back to us at the most expensive rates of any developed nation on the planet. Joey's gonna die of diabetes in this country. We can do better than that, because not only is that immoral, unconscionable, and unjust, it's incredibly expensive as Joey gets closer to death if we do not change course. He's gonna be taking himself to the emergency room, where the outcomes will not be as good as if they had been if we'd gotten to them earlier. It's going to be far more expensive, many multiples over what it would have cost for us just to pay for his medications. In this state, whose largest provider of mental health care services is the county jail system. In fact, the Harris County Jail has more inpatient mental health care beds than all the public mental health care facilities rolled up and combined, to the point that some people get arrested on purpose for schizophrenia or bipolar disorder that they cannot afford to treat on the outside. Inside that jail, behind those bars, at your expense, you pay for it, $400 a night to feed, to clothe, to house, and to prescribe the psychotropic medications that make life bearable for that person who almost lost everything. And we've also locked up their potential to finish their education, work that job, pay their taxes, shoulder their fair share of the burden so it rests a little bit lighter on everyone else. We've locked up their opportunity to raise their families, create works of art, rock out with the Palacios brothers, whatever they're going to do that's going to raise the quality of life, not just for them, but the people in their lives. And let me put it to you this way, and then you tell me who the real conservative is in this race. $400 a night to keep someone locked up to treat their schizophrenia, or $14.50 for outpatient mental health care services. What if we took our status as the least insured state in the country and used our experience to decide that we will lead the way on guaranteed, high-quality, universal health care for all of us, every child, every woman, every man, everyone well enough to finish their education, live to their full potential, contribute everything they were supposed to contribute in their lifetime. Henry mentioned education, and I saw that there were some public school educators in the room. Thank you all for being here. Grateful for your public service. I just want to tell you, it's on the top of our minds right now that nearly half of you are working a second job, some a third job, just to make ends meet. Just to pay the note on the mortgage, to put food on the table, maybe to set something aside for your kids and the generation that follows. That's nuts. You took on debt in order to serve our kids in the classroom. You paid to be a student teacher so you could be the best that you could possibly be at your craft. And we're asking you to drive an Uber, to work in a restaurant, to tend bar, just so that you can deliver that education to our children. Y además, and Henry said this as well, we ask you to teach to a high stakes, high pressure, standardized test that in no way effectively measures your potential for connecting with those kids or the progress that they have made under your care in the classroom. Retired teachers, you have not seen a cost of living adjustment in 13 years. So as your costs for gasoline or medications or just life have gone up, in real terms, what you're seeing in your household income has gone down after year after year after year. And to add insult to injury, inexplicable to me, is this state decided to double your health care costs as a retired teacher, putting the god-awful decision before you: do I pay for those medications that make life better or just keep me alive? Or do I pay for the rent? Or do I help out my kids who are struggling themselves because maybe they're school teachers who need that second and third job? How could we ask the next generation of teachers to dedicate their lives to this kind of important public service when they see how the teachers in the classrooms today are being treated, how their grandparents who were in the classrooms before are being treated now in their retirement? What if we decided we were going to be the state that, despite the fact that it's against the law in the state of Texas for teachers to organize and strike for better working conditions and wages, that we would organize for those teachers? We would go out there for them and make sure that they're paid a living wage, they can teach to the child, and they can look forward to the retirement of dignity. Are you with me on that? I cannot thank everyone involved here. I want to be there for at this moment for our public school educators right now. Whatever the issue is, if it's our concern that if this planet cooks another 2 degrees Celsius, we lose it for every generation that follows, and we will not be worrying about rebuilding Houston or bailing it out after its third 500-year flood in 5 years, because human beings will no longer be able to live in Houston. We won't be worried about helping those farmers and ranchers in the north, in the Panhandle, in West Texas, who grow the food and the fiber that this state, this country, this world depends on, because they will no longer be able to do that anymore as the droughts become more severe, more significant, more profound, and more frequent. But we're also the same state that leads the country right now in the generation of wind power. We could soon lead the country in the generation of solar, the 2 fastest growing jobs in the United States of America today: solar jobs and wind jobs. For the right economic reasons, for wages, for jobs that are high skilled, high value, for saving the planet for the next generation. We need on that. Whatever the issue is, I'm confident of our ability to do it because you have shown me the way in this campaign. Visiting every one of the 254 counties, never allowing ourselves to be defined by our differences. Could care less what party you belong to, who it is you pray to, or if you pray at all, who you love, how many generations you've been here, or whether you just arrived today. All that matters is that you're a Texan, you're an American, and you're a human being. We're going to start treating each other that way. Any difficulty with the power and joy of the people of Texas, and nothing, I tell you, nothing can stop us. And what you're doing right now, being here, making this commitment to the future, not just to winning on the 6th of November, but delivering for every single day of the next 6 years that follow on the very high expectations that we have set for and by one another. That's going to make the difference that counts for this country in the way in which we're doing it. No PACs, no corporations, no special interests, all people, all the time, every day, in every single county of Texas. This is the way to do it. And those of you like Joaquin's godmother, who have been knocking on doors for us, who've been making the phone calls, you know, you've got to feel it. You are making the difference right now. I was on a block walk with Zach, who's our field director, not too long ago, in Laredo. And we were using a fancy app that some of you have used that tells you who the likely voters are. You knock on their doors, you introduce yourself, you ask them what's on their mind, and it's incredibly helpful. But we were Polis. We were walking with a young man named David. I don't know if David's here. And David, what's that? He's in College Station right now. And David says, hey, I don't see Mr. Lozano's name on your walk list. And I was like, well, who's Mr. Lozano? And he says, Mr. Lozano owns the auto repair shop in this neighborhood. He fixes everybody's car who lives here. The guy knows everybody. And Mr. Lozano's wife has been in the PTA for each of her children's entire educational career. So she knows every mom and every dad in the neighborhood. You need to go to Mr. Lozano's house. So we walk over to Mr. Lozano's house, sit in their living room, and have a great conversation about family and life, their kids, the kids that Amy and I are raising, what we want to see happen for this country and our future. Fast forward a few months, I'm in San Antonio, and I'm downtown, and we're shooting a quick video that we're going to post on Twitter or Snapchat. And just as we're about to roll, Chris is about to take the video, this van rolls by and then backs up, and the window rolls down, and the guy says, "Are you Beto?" I said, "I am." He said, "Holy smokes," and he gets out of the van, he comes over, big hugs and handshakes, and I said, "Well, how did you know who we are?" And he said, "Well, I'm from Laredo, and Mr. Lozano told me all about you, and I've got to vote for you." So, this stuff works. Get out there, knock on doors, make those phone calls, dedicate yourself to the mission that they all are doing. Laredo, are you ready to win?
Bueno, tuve la oportunidad de saludarlos y estar con ellos, bueno, pero es el futuro. No dudo que algún día Joaquín será el presidente de Estados Unidos. Es un joven muy preparado, que conoce la gente, le conoce la humanidad, que es una persona real, genuina, que es lo importante del momento. Beto es una persona, tengo muchos años de conocerlo, una persona genuina. Cuando estuvo en el debate, es la persona, según los más recientes encuestas, es la persona más querida, sencilla, sincera, una persona muy querida. Salió, la manera que se exhibió fue muy positivo. Al contrario, el contrario de él, muy negativo, una persona que no aprecia lo bueno que tenemos entre los latinos aquí en Estados Unidos. Yo creo que es una persona que va a cambiar mucho. No puedes tener una persona que siga pensando en que necesitamos un muro. Ustedes saben que durante mis 8 años como alcalde siempre estuve en contra del muro. Los muros no funcionan, nunca van a funcionar. Tenemos que construir puentes de amistad, algo positivo, y es lo que trae Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke es amigo del pueblo, no considera a los latinos como negativos, como es el presidente Donald Trump, que habla mal de las mujeres, de los latinos, de todos, hasta los afroamericanos. Yo creo que es tiempo que lo más importante de toda esta elección es que salga la gente a votar. No vamos a ver el cambio hasta que no salga la gente a votar. Es lo necesario, es lo que se necesita. Es el futuro de los niños, que la gente considere que esta elección para el Senado del Estado de Texas, el Senado en Estados Unidos, para el senador, ojalá y que sea nuestro siguiente senador, porque es lo que necesitamos, una voz de los latinos, una voz para la gente, no una persona que le da la espalda, en lugar de darle la mano, les da la espalda. Ted Cruz le da la espalda a nuestra gente y por eso es necesario que tomamos el tiempo para votar, porque si no votamos, se nos va el barco, se nos va la oportunidad de tener una persona excelente en el Senado de Estados Unidos representando al estado de Texas.
¿Su pronóstico, nos podemos pintar de azul?
Sí, creo que sí existe la posibilidad, pero no se puede lograr. La clave en esta elección es si sale la gente del sur de Texas, ya digamos de San Antonio, de Houston, del Valle de Río Grande, de Laredo, de Corpus, de toda la región, podemos hacer la diferencia. Aquí muchas veces tenemos el promedio de 25% del voto. Es increíble que la gente no salga a votar. Si a usted le importa el futuro de sus niños, de sus hijos, de pelear el racismo, porque el monstruo del racismo ha despertado en Estados Unidos. Lo hemos visto, lo vemos todos los días. ¿Por qué no hacemos algo y hacer la diferencia? La diferencia para los niños, para el futuro de nuestros hijos. ¿Okay?
Muchísimas gracias, Mayor.
Encantado.
Maggie, queremos preguntarte, ¿qué es lo más importante en todo? Es muy importante lo que vivimos ahorita y todo, pero ¿qué es lo más importante para que esto se dé?
Bueno, lo más importante y en lo que todos coincidieron es que necesitamos salir a votar. Entonces, por favor, necesitan salir. Si no se han registrado para votar, recuerden que nosotros podemos ayudarles y ayudarles a llenar la tarjeta de registro o cambiarles la dirección para que tengan su registro a tiempo para salir a votar. Eso es lo más importante, porque podemos reunirnos aquí muchas personas, pero a la hora de salir a votar no van. Entonces lo más importante para poder hacer el cambio es salir a votar.
Pues muchas gracias, Maggie. Esperemos que se dé la gran votación que esperamos. Muchas gracias. Nos encontramos saliendo del evento de Beto O'Rourke. El meeting estuvo muy animado, hubo muchísima gente, como ustedes pueden observar. Fue un muy emotivo mensaje el que mandó Beto. Hablaron también, estuvieron con nosotros también los hermanos Castro, que son el representante del distrito de San Antonio y el ex mayor de la ciudad de San Antonio, que acompañaron también a Beto, así como también Henry Cuellar, representante de aquí del distrito de Laredo. Muchos políticos alrededor, pudimos ver ahí a varios de los councilmans, gente que ha trabajado con el Partido Demócrata, el ex mayor Salinas y varias otras personalidades. Estuvo muy concurrido, como les dije, estuvimos en un ambiente muy festivo y pues le vemos, según se puede observar aquí en Laredo, auguramos un triunfo de Beto O'Rourke y necesitamos, como siempre lo decimos, ir a votar en estas elecciones, votar, no dejar de votar y votar por aquellas personas como Beto, que protege y ayuda a las comunidades minoritarias como los latinos y las personas de México, que han venido de México, inmigrantes y ciudadanos ya ahora que descienden de mexicanos. Damos por concluida en esta ocasión. Muchísimas gracias. Esto es Filikos y nos despedimos en la Plaza Zaragoza, en la esquina de la iglesia de San Agustín, en Laredo, Texas. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarnos.